So what's something that car enthusiasts could do to lower their cost of ownership to be able to buy their dream car?
Well, really familiarizing yourself with how the financing works is certainly the first step, because if you can buy more aspirationally, you do stand a better chance of the rest of the people that dream about those cars to catch up, and that will force the market in the right direction. And really just focusing on what actually will happen when you buy these cars. And so there's a lot of cars like this that people are really, really scared of. But in reality, this car's barely been maintained. There's nothing that wrong with it. It needs things here and there, and I'll do those as I need to. But all the stuff that I'm now doing to the Murciélagos, I should have done when I bought them 5 years ago, but I couldn't afford it then. And so I just kicked the can down the road, and now I'm doing most of it because it's in a better position to do so. So, I think the more you can understand about the cars that you're dreaming about owning, from what ownership is really like, the more you can understand about how to finance them, and just, buying them at the right moment. Like, you don't need to buy them when they're 3, 4, 5 years old. If you start looking at 10, 15, 20 years old, it's real hard to lose money when you buy them right.
What would you say is a relatively inexpensive supercar that is a somewhat safe bet, doesn't require a bunch of attention?
Sure. There's so many great examples. Lotuses are perfect examples. They are pretty inexpensive to keep running. They are headed in the right direction because they're so unrepeatable from a technological perspective. You can't make cars that unsafe anymore, and you can't make cars with that little technology anymore.
Freddie said that they're unreliable, though.
The Elises aren't. The Evoras can be, and the Esprits are very unreliable. And so you still got to learn to buy the right one. A 997 Turbo is an $80,000 car that is as modern as you need anything to be, even though it's 15, almost 20 years old. That's a great car. Any Gallardo is wonderful, even ones that have been in Santa Monica mudslides and mud all the way up to the tops of the doors. Especially the manual cars have all the right makings. Early R8s, great cars, pretty reliable. The V10s have some, inconvenient things like the AC compressors go out and they're really hard to get to, stuff like that. But overall, there's so many great cars in that $50,000 to $150,000 zone that people are paying more than that for Suburbans and Escalades now. And you can have a great car that's a whole lot of fun, AMG GTs, all sorts of stuff.
What are you noticing right now in the car market?
So there's been such an explosion of production in all of the exotic car manufacturers that it is a wildly different landscape. Every day they're making more $100,000 cars this year than existed 20 years ago. So you look at how many $1 million cars there are on Earth. We did a video back in 2018, trying to figure out how many there were at that point. And we tried to look back and think through how many were there in 2003, so 15 years prior to that. And it was like just over 1,000 in 2003, like right before the Enzo and the Corolla GT and the SLR. And it was about 25,000 in 18. And in 23, when we did it last year, it was almost 30,000. And so you think like, every day there was another $1 million car on Earth. And so there was so much buying activity and so much frothiness in the market that everything went up. And now the stuff that isn't actually that rare or that special is going down fast. And so, they made almost as many Aventadors as they did Gallardos. And we think of them more like Mercies, but there's, 12,500 Aventadors, 4,099 Murciélagos. There's actually a few less. They didn't build all the VINs, but so anything that isn't that special or that people didn't buy as passionately, like SF90s and 812s and McLaren 720s and 750s, and these cars, Aventadors, they're going down fast with no bottom in sight. And like I've thought a little bit about trying to buy an Aventador, but I get so scared that they're going to take my offers that I'm just like, man, I can't stand car depreciation. And so there's no rush to do so. But yeah, the car market in general is softening. New car inventory is becoming a lot more available, but it's the high-end stuff. Every month there's a new record.
It seems like Tesla prices are falling dramatically. Like I'm watching Cars and Bids.
Yeah.
Like probably twice a day, just like browsing for fun. But I'm seeing almost brand new Tesla Model S Plaids that are selling half of what they would have cost a year ago. half.
In a lot of high-end electric cars, we are seeing 50% residuals in 1 to 2 years. So you're talking about cars that are losing 4 to 5% of their value a month. That's insane. I don't really know how we wrap our heads around that. I mean, it's a lot of wealth that is being evaporated, and it's not being evaporated. It's going straight to these manufacturers who are heavily government funded, and it's a dark time because these cars have no bottom in value because they will require insanely expensive battery replacement, and it's a tough thing. So I don't know what the future is for electric car values, but we should probably all be careful.
What cars do you think are the best investments today?
The best car investments are the cars you really want to own. There are nearly no examples of cars beating the stock market for more than 5 years at a time. Certainly none that have ever done it for 10 years at a time. And so when you start thinking about what an investment should do in terms of performance, it's unlikely that a car is going to do that. Now, there are obviously safer cars to put your money in from a residual value perspective, and that usually is 10 to 20-year-old really rare and really interesting manual transmission cars. I think the manual transmission elitism is probably going to wane over the next 10 years because there are so few people that still know how to drive them. In the same way that like pre-war cars are finicky enough that there's a lot of more modern car enthusiasts that don't tolerate what ownership would look like. And so I think that's the right way to approach it, is that if there is a car that you actually want to own and you will enjoy as an alternative asset class, you're not wrong to go out and buy one. But the only reason that I have, probably turned, $1 million of car purchases and payments and repairs over the last 10 to 15 years into probably about $5 million or $6 million of value today with some debt attached to it is, just because it's been my job. I mean, whether or not it was exactly my job, I've treated it as, one of the ways that I'm going to build wealth to ultimately retire one day is in the form of a car collection.
What do you think is the worst car ever made?
The worst cars are just the boring ones, the ones that don't make you excited to take it somewhere. I mean, I think that there are unreliable cars, there are difficult cars, there are cars that are expensive to keep up, but that doesn't make them bad. I think the cars that I just don't have any interest in are the ones that are your Nissan Altimas that you're just trying to get A to B in. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in the same way that I don't care what designer makes my clothes, because that's not something that I find enjoyment out of. If you tried to let someone who doesn't like cars use one of mine as a way to get around, they would abandon it on the side of the road, or they'd break down and not be able to get where they want it. So it's one of these things that it's so hard to prescribe your own preferences and ideas onto someone else because we've all got different mindsets about how we want to use it.
Now, all of this reminds me that the future of business is really uncertain because if you ask 9 different experts, you're going to get 10 different answers from a bull market to bear market. Stocks go up, they go down. It's really confusing, and it would be very helpful to have a crystal ball.
But until that happens, over 40,000 businesses have already future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one fluid platform. Plus, with just one unified business management suite, there is just one source of truth giving you all of the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. And with real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data.
When you're able to close the books in days and not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time looking for what's next. So whether you're earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunity, right now you could download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/iced. Again, netsuite.com/iced with the link down below in the description. netsuite.com/iced. Thank you so much, NetSuite, for sponsoring this episode. And now back to the podcast.